Just a cup, redemption draweth nigh. So, thank you for joining my YouTube channel again, Deliver Us Your People. Alright, I want to get talking about the Most High and how He deals with us in the supernatural or the spirit realm. I first want to know, and you can put in the comments below, have any of you ever had a supernatural experience? I know a lot of you have, and if you have, go ahead and you can discuss in the comments below. And I'll just share with you something that happened to me most recently. So while I had prophetic dreams and often would pray and go into supplication with the Lord um, in the past and mostly over the course of my life, I have fallen away from the Lord. And there was, whenever you sin, it creates a huge distance, it creates a huge gap between you and the Most High. You have a strained relationship, you become estranged as well. And so there was a time in my life where I was walking in rebellion. I married someone who I was repeatedly told, and even my mother, she begged me not to marry, and she prophesied what would happen to me if I married this particular man. And I went ahead and I did it anyway. And I was walking in really awful rebellion. I knew who I was, and I still did did this, what I would call demonic covenant, with someone who I knew at the time. I just knew he was unclean. He was not of the Most High. And much later, after I got delivered from that situation, I was restoring my relationship with the Most High, and the Most High began to deal with me. And one of the first things He began to deal with me on was I had begun to work on my relationship with Him, but I really had not understood the gravity of what I had done. And so He temporarily removed something from me. And I, no matter how much I wanted to be closer to this person, they were temporarily removed. And I began to seek the Lord and get closer to Him and go and pray every single day. And I was fasting and praying and just really in His presence for an extensive amount of time. And this was on a daily basis. And the Lord began to deal with me, and He let me know He wants us constantly before Him. He wants us always in His presence. He wants us to sup, and He wants to rule and abide, but He wants us to constantly be before Him and remain in His presence. He wants us to dwell with Him, not just only when things are hard, not just only when we need something, not just only when we're pleading with Him and in supplication, but He wants to have this daily, ongoing relationship with us, so that we can fully know Him in all of His ways. And so while I was going through this issue, it allowed me to get so much closer to the Most High. And so one day I was praising the Lord and I was worshiping Him, and it was like I could hear or feel within me the word El Shaddai. And He was telling me that He is El Shaddai. And this was the first time I had actually begun to hear the Lord's voice speaking to me outside of just through a dream, through prophetic dreams. And the Lord began to deal with me, and He said, well, you made a covenant with a demon. And when He said it, it hurt. Like I felt such an inner hurt, almost like I was being torn from something. And He said, you made a covenant with a demon, and then I brought you out of it, because he had delivered me from out of my marriage. And he said, then you went and you tried to make covenants with other people. And he began to show me, and I had gone to probably I've probably had 4 different attorneys. I went and after going through this particular marriage where there was a lot of domestic violence and abuse, I went and I saw counselors to help alleviate some of the PTSD that I was suffering. And so I had gone to all these different people, gone before judges, gone to see different people in relationship to dissolving this particular marriage. And with each person, I gone to the police, got no results while I was in the marriage, went through these different attorneys, did not get the results that I was expecting or hoping for. And with each attorney, you sit there and you sign a retainer, which is an agreement, which is a form of a covenant. And so the Lord was showing me, was taking me back through my memory, bringing these things back to my memory, that you had went through covenants expecting an outcome, expecting a good end, but all of them failed you. The police failed you, the different judges you went to failed you, the different attorneys that you've gone through failed you. And you even said to your mother, the way that I was able to get delivered from my PTSD and my anxiety was reading the word. He's the one who restored back my peace and began to strip those things from me by being in his presence, dwelling in his presence. The anxiety that was left over from the relationship, the post-traumatic stress disorder that was left over from the relationship, all of that was stripped away while I remained and dwelled in his presence, while I read his word and allowed the word to wash over me. Praying, prayer, supplication, fasting, all of that began to strip some of these unclean and just harassing spirits that had fallen on me as being a part of what was a demonically arranged or a marriage that I should not have, a covenant that I should not have been in, because it left me with bitterness and anger, all of these frustrated spirits. But through his word, through prayer, through being in his presence, I was able to be cleansed of that and just renewed and washed. So the next thing I began to praise and worship him. And the more I praised and worshiped him, the more revelation he gave me. One of the revelations was that he was El Shaddai. And so I had to learn what El Shaddai meant. And he spoke to me and he said, you made a covenant with this man, a demon, and that was broken, that fell through. You made covenant with the attorneys, the judges, the police officers. None of these government entities held up to their promise. Those all fell through and they broke. But I am a covenant keeping Yah. And he showed me that by being El Shaddai, the first time that he was referred to as El Shaddai in the scriptures was when he made a covenant with our father Abraham. And we know that he kept that covenant to Abraham. And so he's here to tell you today that if he's made a covenant with you, and when you get back in right standing with him, he'll keep his covenant with you, just like he's kept his covenant with me. And he told me once I broke off that covenant with him, with the demonic covenant I was in, we'll call it, I could get back in right standing with him. Once I renewed my relationship with the Most High Yah, he restored his covenant to me, and then to me he was El Shaddai.